My name's Chuck Roberts, and I'm the commander of the 70th Tank Battalion Reenactors. We just finished writing a book called Armored Strike Force, which is the total history of the 70th Tank Battalion in World War II, which is one of the most decorated battalions during World War II. They used a variety of tanks, and one of them right here is the M5 light tank. We can see that it's shown with the normal track configuration and the gun configuration and the mascot on the side. This is called Joe Peckerwood, and he was the mascot, and they painted them on all the 70th Tank Battalion tanks. Notice it says 70, which is French for 70th. And we can see he's a turtle with a cartridge and a helmet representing a tank unit itself. And the description of that is in the book here, and there are several photos, over 550 photos of various aspects of World War II that are unpublished. These are photos from veterans and veteran families, and a good review of these shows that very few have been published before. I would say that 95% of these photos in here have never been published, and they show some very interesting aspects of battles and people in World War II, all the way from Fort Meade, Maryland, through North Africa, Sicily, into England, and then to Normandy, through France, Germany, Belgium, into Germany again, and then finally in southern Germany at the end of the war. The 70th Tank Battalion had quite a record. It had several battle stars and was often called upon to do some of the difficult tasks. It was attached to infantry divisions. That's why it's called the 70th Tank Battalion. It was an independent battalion, and various companies would be attached to various divisions throughout the war. The book goes into all the details of that, and shown here in the front cover is a crew from the 70th Tank Battalion in what's called a jumbo Sherman, which is a big Sherman, and that is a Mike DiCarlo, who's one of the drivers in the tank, and he was a member of the 70th Tank Battalion. And of course on the back jacket you can see all the different aspects of photos that have been taken from the book, including several German tanks and other vehicles. We've been asked to provide some of these photos to other authors, especially the landing craft at Slapton Sands, which was very hard to get photos of because that was top secret. If you took a photo of it, you probably would be court-martialed. But some of our people did, and I ended up with the photos, and they're now in high demand because they're so rare. The photos show the tanks landing on landing craft at Slapton Sands. And other authors have asked for photos of the German tanks that have been knocked out, especially the ones in Tunisia and also in Normandy themselves. So right here we have the typical tank used by the 70th Tank Battalion, the M5 light tank, and we see here the 37mm gun and the sandbags in front. The sandbags were to deflect the anti-tank rockets, either Panzerschreck or Panzerfaust. And then there's a 50 caliber of the machine gun on top. And if we walk around over here, we can see a view of the whole tank itself with the rubber tracks and the road wheels. There are four road wheels, and then the drive sprocket itself in front. And we want to come back here to the rear of it. This vehicle has two engines in it, and we can see there are two Cadillac V8s in the back to drive this particular tank. And so it was fairly well powered and would go through almost anything throughout World War II. The 70th used that particular tank throughout the war. And the book goes into a lot of details about that particular tank and others used by the 70th Tank Battalion. If you're interested in tanks of World War II or history of World War II, this book covers a lot of those aspects that are not seen in other books because of the variety of the photos. This is primarily a photo history of over 550 rare photographs of the 70th Tank Battalion in World War II. And this is a World War II half-track typically used by the 70th Tank Battalion. As we can see here, the Joe Peckerwood is on the side. Half-track, of course, front tires, and then the track is in the back, and this was a very mobile vehicle. This one is set up with a 75mm gun and is used as a support gun or anti-tank gun in the early years of World War II in North Africa. Then after that, it was primarily used as support artillery, but you'd find several half-tracks in photographs in the book that the 70th used, all the way from the early M2 half-tracks to the M3 and other half-track versions itself. The early chapters of the book show very rare vehicles that were thought to be used in World War II but never did become used because they just weren't very utilitarian. And consequently, the 70th Tank Battalion was often used as a test bed to do this. So I would say the beginning of the book is a very interesting read on very rare photos of tanks and other vehicles used. For instance, like the M2 motor carriage, a very early one, and some of the early Mark 8 tanks that were now obsolete, FT-17 tanks, and some of the early trucks that were used in World War II.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.